Hey people, Positive Paul here. Thursday, August 11th, 2022. We'll pick back up where I left off yesterday. One of the more frustrating issues that occur when doing these videos is once they're completed, the individual will always think of something that they wish they would have included in the information they're trying to convey. And the one thing about these conspiracy theories that we can all agree upon is as they move along in time and more individuals are involved, there's what may be facts or fiction, they begin to kind of they're added in, they're included, but they take a life of their own. And us being humans, thoughtful, caring, thinking humans that have open minds, once we hear something we can relate to or sounds like that's something similar, or it will maybe bring back a memory that will cause you to agree with that information and you'll identify with it. So, yesterday, obviously, we're talking about the Montauk Project. We're talking about the four individuals that gave life, breath, legs to the myth of the Montauk Conspiracy. Now, we know the Philadelphia experiment goes hand in hand. The quick review is that if you were part of this Montauk Project between the years of 1980 and 83, these boys would have been initially put through MK Ultra. At the time of its collapse in the early 70s, they would have been isolated, but they would have been, brought back for another day. Also, in the process of doing this with young children, you need to give them rest before you abuse them again. You need to let the body develop naturally. So these boys all would have been the holdouts, the MK holdouts from the late 60s and 70s. And the reason why you do not find people from the original group from the 50s is just that they would have been horribly treated, their health would have been seriously compromised, on top of the harassment, the stalking. And, hey, you got to eliminate the evidence, eliminate any potential witnesses that could come back and incriminate these sad sack Satanists, these Edomite Jews, that we know they operate in the shadows. So we come to where I show up in New Jersey, 1979. These other boys would have been positioned around Long Island, New York. And when they initially get this conspiracy going, all right, up until this very day, yes, they might mention these Montauk boys, but none of them know where any of them are, what even one of their names were. And we know Swerdlow says that he didn't have his memories wiped. He maintained most of his memories. So again, look, he's been doing this now for whatever, at least 20 years. And he still has yet to identify any Montauk boy or what may have happened to them. But yet, excluding Duncan, Al Preston, and Stewart seem to actually, a lot of memories. They just don't know who these Montauk boys were. But of course, Duncan, the lead psychic. So what happens is once you start to give these conspiracy theories life, and you're trying to present this information to the public, how this is done. And I believe at some point in time there was a transition on what we call the old boy network, where as these individuals like Uncle Carl, Bush, they begin to die off and the younger Satanists step in to fill their shoes, they are not, I don't know how to explain this. I wouldn't say, I was going to use the term gentlemanly because we know how these Satanists try to act. Like they're all upstanding and righteous. And I think the group that took over for the older group, they are they're a little. I'll use this term. They're more sloppy in the way they go about things, and it's more easy to identify these individuals. So, with Al Bielek, he is part of the Old Boy Network, and what they do is they have these forums that were already created, and MUFON was one of them. Now we know MUFON's been around since, I believe, 1968. So you have to first ask yourself, how do these individuals, is it like all of a sudden hearsay that, oh, this guy Al Bielek, he's saying there, was this Philadelphia experiment, and we know all the details with it, but yet it involves this Montauk Project, this 40-year time loop that was inadvertently created through this 1943 August 12th experiment. But, how would these people where do they come from, say, hey, Mr. Bielek, we want you to start speaking at our conferences concerning this? Now, I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but it's the initial connection to get this going, meaning the conspiracy theory public. So what I wanted to add that I missed yesterday is concerning the EMI story that Al told on January 13th, 1990 in Dallas, Texas at a MUFON conference. Now, we know EMI, as I explained, was a scientific instrumentation company owned by these two brothers, the Wilson brothers. But where this all comes in concerning the movie, The Philadelphia Experiment, where this is what jarred Al's memories concerning Montauk and the Philadelphia Experiment, they had something to do with the movie. And so there was these representatives that had this picture that had been in their archives since the 1890s. And there were the picture had the two Wilson brothers, an unknown individual, and Aleister Crowley. Now, what happened is the two representatives that were going to these psychotronic conferences and other conferences of the like, they were always had been looking for this individual, and finally they think they found him, meaning Preston. Preston's their guy. They go visit him, tell him, hey, look, we've been looking for you and we want to show you something. And they show him the picture of the Wilson brothers, the individual who they say is Preston and Aleister Crowley from the 1890 or something, all right? Now, here's what I missed. Now, what they called Preston the man from the future. And apparently what he had done is he had brought the story about the Philadelphia experiment and told it to the Wilson brothers with their meeting with Aleister Crowley back in 1890. So these representatives are saying, look, this story's been in our archive for over 100 years. We know that you're the guy in this picture. You're the man from the future because Aleister Crowley told us so. So, okay, that's what I missed. I wish I would have added that in there. Would have been nice. But hey, you can't, I'm doing this. It's off, these videos I do prepare, but they need to flow in a certain order, and then that becomes my problem because it's too overwhelming. Because remember, with the conspiracy theories, the reason why you only have a couple people initially is because too many cooks destroy the brew. You need to get it going. So in the case with Al, you have to ask yourself. First, Preston and Duncan somehow get together. Very, this is all very vague, other than them just being at the same place and the same time talking and coming up with the fact that, hey, I think I know you, and next thing you know, you've got the Montauk myth. So, what I'm going to do is, what I keep telling you people now for years is that the Satanists understand Scripture better than we do. And when you go to Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, concerning iron mixed with miry clay, this is very important. People have no clue what the real meaning to this is. I've heard other meanings, but to me, this is at this point, the revived Roman Empire, but it's a way for these Satanists to assimilate into the general population, meaning hybrids, which we know they told us in Jeremiah, the day will come when I will mix the seed of man with the seed of beast. So, with that being said, I want to toss that in there, and we're going to get back to the book of Daniel too, because it's very important. Now, this is what I want to show you people on what happened last week as I was trying to do these videos. These numbskulls are buzzing around, and they sent the helicopter out. Now, I had a transcript of this 1990 MUFON conference concerning Al. An individual by the name of Clay Tippin had attended it. He was from Louisiana somewhere, and what he did is he had recorded it on a cassette tape back then, I assume, right? And he actually spent the time to do the transcript. So I found this online years ago, and if it's still there. I tried to get it back because there's other information that I wanted to extract from this transcript. Now you can hear it on the 3X channel on YouTube, but it's a computer-generated voice. It will give you a headache. And the thing of it is, if you people are serious on trying to understand what the hell was done back then, this is a good place to start. So the Clay Tippin, Tippen, the transcript that he made from Dallas, Texas on 1990 concerning Al Bielek. So what they did was, this PDF converter was working just fine a week ago. And then the day the helicopter came over, which I was able to get it on one pass, it's up on YouTube. I didn't put it on BitChute because you people think these flyovers, it's amazing when I throw up these flyover videos and there's nobody. Yes, there's people that, there's a helicopter flying, but they can't explain why or what it is or what this helicopter is doing flying over them. But what they were able to successfully do is watch this. Okay, I've been dealing with this for years. Now, it looks like my iBooks just finally came back. Okay, no, it didn't. Okay, so no, they uninstalled my iBooks again for the 100th time. So these are some of the difficulties I have, that they spend a lot of time trying to prevent me from doing these videos because they don't want you to get hold of this information. Now let's real quick, I want to go back to the hybrid issue. Duncan, flaming hybrid, lazy lying lizard. Look at the stair step, the geometric pattern. We know about that. We did that yesterday. Okay, let's move along now. Okay, I want to talk about Al right now. This guy, unfortunately for him, is very involved in all this, and he drew the short straw. And I don't think he was very happy about having to be a part of this, but he had no choice. Because the other option is, well, you might be pushing up daisies if you don't go along with the old boy network. Because they have a time tested system in place to eliminate anybody that wants to back out of their nefarious, devious, deceptive activities concerning what they're really up to, folks. Which the sad sack Satanist Edomite Jew has one thing in mind for thousands of years, and that's eliminate his brother Jacob, Israel. Now, Al, as I explained, he went to Harvard, so you can take that for what it's worth. But the thing about Al is when he was initially doing these conferences, MUFON and wherever else, he was getting pushback. These people were asking difficult questions, and some of them, Al really he couldn't answer. He had to skirt around them. So what they do is, we know Australia is involved in all this, and it seems like there is a large contingent of individuals out in Australia that I guess what they do is they have their own forums, but the Australians, who are wonderful people, and there's this beautiful person, I hope I'll say her name, Stephanie. I know her from YouTube. She's helped me out. And it makes me, in my heart, to know that someone from Australia would go out of their way to send me money, you know? It gives hope that the human spirit is not dead and gone. It's alive and well, except we all know what the consequences can be for speaking out or helping others. So in Australia, it's kind of a neutral place in the sense that these Americans can go, they can actually work and practice on their conspiracy theories because they're not going to get the type of pushback that Americans would do. As evidenced, if you read the Clay Tippin question answer session with Al, again, he's getting, they're firing away at him. And, bud, I'll be a little bit, okay? Give me a break, all right? So, Al, he goes to Australia in the early 90s, and he does his whole spiel, but this is actually a picture of him in Australia where he's doing a conference. And the reason why I'm talking about this now, and I'm gonna get to the point. There is one of James Gilliland's buddies is a person by the name of Peter Slattery, and he has the Australian ECETI, I guess, their version of ECETI in Australia, and obviously, multiple UFO sightings out there for decades now. And, he's one of the main guys out there amongst many, all right? But in this conference that Al does, I believe in Sydney possibly, I had watched this, and I will swear to God that the first person that steps up to ask a question is a very young Peter Slattery. It looks just like him. It sounds like him. And I'm adding this because you have to think, how did all these people just suddenly get together? And if you look at me, I'm the outsider of all this, but I have the facts, the who, the what, the why, the when, the where. I've watched my old man look me in the eye and lie to me my whole life. So the point is that the Old Boy Network, they are smooth, man. They're cool as cucumbers. And this is one of Swerdlow's traits, too. When you listen to him talk, he casually goes over this stuff as it's a matter of fact. And the thing of it is the why you only had the few people initially, they got to get this story formed, created without too many contradictions, and then let the rest of them, take the baton and run with it. So Australia is always used as a location where, yes, you can present this information, but you're not going to get a lot of pushback. So Al's big contradiction is when it comes to Duncan and him jumping off the Eldritch, and where they ended up first. I have him on tape saying first it was Montauk on August 12th, 83, that they landed. It was dark out. Next thing you know, the helicopters got the spotlight on them, picking them up, bringing them down to the subterranean levels at Montauk. There is a very elderly von Neumann. We've been waiting for you, he says. Al's like, what are you talking about? And he says, well, I'm von Neumann. And he says, no, you're not. We just left you in 1943. So there's one thing that, and then von Neumann, according to Al, tells him, well, hey, look, I'm still alive, and we have control on our end of space and time. But what happens is we somehow made a mistake and cannot get the energy shut down in hyperspace, which is causing a bubble in hyperspace, which could cause all these. I don't know if it would have been natural disasters that would have been the effect of this bubble in hyperspace. But they had to go back to the Eldritch in order to shut this down. Now remember, at the same time, they're saying on this end, von Neumann's there, but a psychic that was on the Montauk chair fell asleep and had a nightmare. Next thing you know, Junior is being created. But then the other contradiction is they had planned this, meaning Duncan, this 20-year-old punk, and this blubber boy, Preston, thought to themselves, and I guess who the others? Oh, Jack Pruitt. All right, I don't know why they keep using this guy's name, but they all of a sudden get a conscience. No, folks. Once you're in the satanic sphere of influence, you don't wake up one day and say, "Uh-oh," because the minute you do, they unleash the machine on you. Do you get that? That's where the harassment, the stalking, the blacklisting comes into place. And I'll add this: what's funny about being here in Mexico, the Mexicans don't understand about what happened to these white children in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and they could care less. But they don't understand blacklisting, all right? And not just them. The Chinese, the Koreans, the South Americans, they don't know about blacklisting as it relates to a white person. All they know is that they need to get to America to get their hands on the Jew buck, and they don't care how they do it. Now, if in order for them to have this system still going and them being allowed, all right, let in to do the work that now that they eliminated most of the Israelites, okay, let's get this clear. They need a replacement group to keep the phony baloney economy moving, to pay off these baby boomers with their Social Security and retirements, which is going to dry up soon. But it comes down to where there's no pushback on these other groups, all right? Now, again, does this 100% across the board? No, you see very brave individuals stepping up all over the place, trying to do what's right. So, see, I got off on a tangent there, but let's get back. Okay, so the contradiction with, okay, what was it? Preston and Duncan, they felt sorry that these young boys were being raped, tortured, beat up, shocked, and God knows what else, put in front of this SAGE radar transmitter where they're getting fried with electromagnetic energy. It just, you use your imagination. No, 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 no. Okay, so what was it? That Al and Duncan, which remember, this is the confusing part. With the Philadelphia experiment, it's Edward Cameron. And they had to go back. Von Neumann sent them back because he said, we can control time, space. We'll get you back on the ship. Just start destroying the equipment to shut down this bubble in hyperspace. So do you see how none of this adds up? Now, I had explained one version of what I believe happened on August 12th, 1983, or maybe a couple weeks prior. And what I'll do is I'm going to link that video with this one, and you could hear what I have to say. So your main contradiction is why is the August 12th, 83 date so important? And what really happened that day? Well, listen to the video on what I believe happened. So you got that contradiction. Now, let's look at Al real quick. And okay, we know, let's see here, if we can get this focused. See, I know I had trouble with this last time. And let me see if I can, it's not looking, all right, there it is, right there. Look at Al's hand, all right? Look at his hand. This is a 1991 interview where this broad, they're up in some high rise in New York City, and he's going through his whole spiel, Philadelphia experiment and all that. But look at Al's hand, all right? Right there, right there. Okay, you see that. Now, I am trying to figure out, now this is me. Now, look at where my head is, all right? And you can see the electromagnetic field around my head. And unfortunately, there's a utility pole behind my neck. It's making me look like Frankenstein here. But anyway, look at my hand, okay? And look at the electromagnetic field around my head. Now, when this is from a video I did before my accident in May of 2020, where I had been a live wire for months. And you had this strange occurrence that in my videos back then, some of them, I'll just tell you that anybody that watched them, that knows what they're looking at, is involved with these conspiracy theories. They have a modicum of scripture knowledge, have a modicum of scientific knowledge, which we all do because we're allowed to read books. Unfortunately, a lot of these books are gone, right? They've been removing these books for decades now, folks. So you can rely upon the internet, and then when it shuts down, there's no more accessing anything. But what this does is, I was a live wire back then. From essentially March of 2020 up until June was the last video where the double lens flare was popping up. And the one before that in May where I had an issue, but you see Lucifer and some of the fallen angels in my video. So the point is, back to Al. Al is the Illuminati programmer that drew the short straw and had to, unfortunately, get involved with this Montauk conspiracy. And, hey, he was allowed to have his life. But let's look at this now. Now, there's very few pictures of me all right, as a child, but there's none. The only pictures of me from the years of 1981 and 1984, and this is sad, they're my yearbook pictures from Vernon High School. And at one point back in the 90s, because what happens, folks, is you'll get around your friends, and the next thing you know, they're looking at pictures. Oh, hey, my family, we took a trip to Great Adventure. We took a trip to Six Flags, Knott's Berry Farm, SeaWorld, right? And they show you these pictures of your family. It's coming, bud. They show you pictures of your family, and it causes you to think, like, wow, what did you know? At one point, you'll say to yourself, man, I haven't seen any pictures of anything of me with my family doing any of this. And at one point in time, you might confront your parents and say, hey, there any pictures of me as a kid? And when they can't cough them up, well, you don't quite put two and two together when you're a kid, but as time progresses, these Satanists realize that you're not going away and they got to, get you in their buzzsaw. That's when you'll start thinking about it. So here is the only picture of me from high school, and this is my New Jersey driver's license. Now, I would have been the first person in my class to get my license. I should have, when we moved from 223 Rethmeyer Court, Baldwin, Missouri, all right, behind Fish Pot Creek, where Covert Court off of Bush Drive was, we moved to New Jersey. Now, I would have been the class of 1984, but from the Midwest to the East Coast, I don't know how it worked. I am the class of 1985. This, you see, the expiration date on this license was January 11th, 1988. So I would have got my license, I guess, January of 84. So this is what I look like in 1984. Right there. Now, where I lived at, as I told you, was Illuminati Holding Pen. There's my name right there, all right? Now, where I lived at was 144 Lounsbury, and there's more to it. But the reason why they don't have the complete street on there is because they don't, if I lost this license, they don't want anybody going anywhere near this place. Now look at the town, Sussex, New Jersey. Now, there's other things concerning this license I'm not going to get into, but I just wanted you to show you people what I look like in 1984. Barely 1 year after the infamous August 12th, 83 date over on Montauk. So there's that. Now, okay, this is what I was able to dig up. Clay Tippin, all right? This copy, it was hacked. It's missing a bunch of pages, but here's the introduction, okay? And you see, okay, So, all right, so that's there. We got that. Let's move along. Now, this is very interesting. Very interesting. I don't know if this is legitimate, but here you see Bill Cooper receiving an email back from, I guess, Richard Hubbard, whoever that was. And look what Richard asked Bill. Now, look, it says 11780. So clearly, look, we can tell ourselves that was a mistake. Because remember when the MUFON conference was in Dallas? January 13th, 1990. Now, in the beginning of the year, I know some of you have done this. When you change years, right in January, you still may write the previous year because you're just not used to. So I think that's what happened there, why it says 1980. But look, it is 4 days after Al's speech. And what does this guy Richard ask Bill Cooper? Have you made any contact with Alfred Bielek, who claims to have been on the Eldritch? If so, or if you are aware of his claims, do you believe he is credible? So, what does Bill Cooper tell this guy Richard? This is at the very bottom. I know Al Bielek. He has been to my home. I have questioned him from every angle and cannot determine whether or not he is telling the truth. He must have some inside information source because he knows about Project Rainbow, which became Project Phoenix, which involves time travel and other issues. An experiment in time travel. Okay, so are we supposed to take this with a grain of salt? Bill Cooper questioning, or this Hubbard guy questioning whether or not Bielek is the real deal. Now let's get back into Bill Cooper real quick. I believe Bill Cooper was a real concerned American. I don't think he was part of the Old Boy Network. Bill Cooper was at the same Dallas Metroplex back on July 2nd, 1989, where he began to give his speeches concerning this new world order. Now, quickly, we all understand Cooper's angle that he came at this was a little different. He was very in tune with the whole alien conundrum. But what was his big thing? Telling all of us about the interlocking corporations concerning, every aspect that we talk about today. Bill Cooper is the forefather of warning Americans about the activities of these Satanists. So in the process of him giving us the information for us to decide is if our government in America, United States, is corrupt, it's rotten from the inside out, then we have to tell ourselves that there would have been others. Why is it that initially, remember in the 80s, this is how this works, folks. All right, okay, let's back up. Let me get my thoughts together. I told you about the trifecta in 1947. Roswell, Dead Sea Scrolls, the establishment as of Israel becoming a nation, which would have took place on the following year, May 14th. The flyover, the Eisenhower the visit with the aliens with Eisenhower over on Edwards Air Force Base, 53 or 54. The Barney Hill abduction. I'm giving the key touchstone points that bring us up to the 70s, where Roswell was reinvestigated, reignited, revisited, but the guy that did this was this Stanton Friedman. So what we do know is the Old Boy Network needed to get initially some of these ideas out there, knowing that decades later that they're going to keep fueling these conspiracies, because the more and more they get involved with these rituals, destroying children, these nefarious activities on just every front, they need lies to cover up their tracks. And it's done in the form that you actually almost forecast, right, through predictive programming on what they're up to, but they don't give you the full story. It's only up to you to figure out and put the puzzle together. So Cooper was not sure about Al Bielek. That's the point to this right now. And let's do this, because my son's getting antsy. I have no more space on my phone, and my son was graciously enough allowing me to use his phone. Almost, bud.
Okay, Dad.
All right. So now I'm all off on track because he's hovering. The Bible and King Solomon's Temple and Masonry. The traditions and romance of King Solomon's Temple are of great interest to everyone who reads the Bible. They are of transcendent importance to the Masons. The temple is the outstanding symbol in Masonry, and the legendary story of the building of the temple is the fundamental basis of the Masonic rule and guide for conduct in life. The skill of many artists and architects has gone into Dr. Kelchner's restoration of King Solomon's Temple and the Citadel. This would have took place in the early 1920s. The cream of the Masonic historical and philosophical writing has been drawn upon for his description of the temple and its relation to Masonic ritual. Okay, now I went over this a long time ago concerning Mr. Kelchner's recreation of Solomon's Temple. This is some of the most amazing work ever done by anybody. Him and his team back in the early 20s spent years recreating Solomon's Temple. But remember how I tell you, I'm not saying Kelchner was a Satanist, but these Satanists take scripture very seriously. Now, when they focus on Solomon's Temple, you got to start asking some more questions, okay? Don't think that these asshole white hats, these patriots, are out there thinking that somehow we're gonna right the ship. They're not. This all goes back to this ancient knowledge that Cooper talked about concerning the mystery schools, and there's just so much more to it that's germane, but I'm not going to get into it in this video. Now, what I want to do quick is let's go over real quick on, I'm going to, for the last time, tell this story. And this is the summer of 2019. I am on a bus. They have these like buses that I can get around down in Rosarito Beach, and believe it or not, they only cost $1 to get me places that cover distance. So I am on this bus. There's only one seat left, and it's the seat next to me. Now, normally when you're on these buses, the people on these buses, meaning the Mexicans, they'll be talking, laughing, just having conversation. And we get up to this one bus stop, and I clearly see a very large man standing there. Now, this is the middle of the summer. It would have been around the month of August. And this individual was a very large man, but he was covered head to toe. He had long pants on, a brown corduroy jacket, and once we stop at that bus stop, he gets on the bus. I look at him and I say to myself, oh no, because I know he's going to have to sit next to me. But I take one look at this guy, and this guy looks exactly like this guy right there. Now, he sits down next to me, and what he begins to do is, and at this point when he got on the bus, everything became quiet, not a sound. He gets on the bus, sits down next to me, and immediately he starts to push up against me, trying to essentially, I guess, just push me up against the side of the bus. And I'm immediately, I said, hell no. I brace myself and I try to push back on him, but I couldn't budge him. He was so powerful